Are we live? I bet we're live. I'm just going to assume we're live.
We've still got the holding screen on.
Yeah, we've still got a holding screen.
There's a delay, guys. Come on.
I don't know if I fixed my hair, but that's all right. It's fine. All right. So we're good. We can just start rolling. Is that
Well, that's
the
a
deal?
bit-
Hey. All right, we're good.
How well can you see
So-
that, Liz?
I can't see that at all.
All
Can
right.
you see it at all?
You'll just read them out and just say the person's name
All
and
right.
we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's a tough one to see.
Say to who the question
All right,
is.
punters and westerns. What do you call your followers? Michael West? Westerners.
Highly discerning people.
Yeah, smart and highly discerning YouTubers. Well, I'm just monitoring the comments here. Shoot through any questions that you have. I'm with Michael West, independent journalist. I only trust independent journalists these days, so that must make you feel pretty good.
Only way to go, mate.
Only way to go. Corporate money can influence the outcome. So we just thought we'd get together because we're both in Newcastle.
Kill two birds with one stone.
And
Come up to Newcastle. Do a big coal investigation. Coal
Yeah,
country.
There's plenty of coal around here. So if you have any questions, I got some questions from my punters on Patreon, and you got some questions from your westerns on Patreon. So we're just going to answer some questions. So if you're in YouTube, mate, did you just get out of bed? Oi! A few hours ago. Roy, come on, mate. So shoot through any questions you've got, and we'll just shoot the shit and answer some
That's
questions
on
you might have.
delay, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be about 45-second delay.
Yeah, so we won't get distracted with that. We'll just have that coming through.
Cool. Okay.
Can you read that, Nick?
Slightly bigger, mate. We'll give it one more.
I
more
can
burl.
adjust if he's like.
Okay. I can do it.
I can make it bigger.
Slightly small.
Then it
slightly.
trims out of the screen there.
Yeah, then it goes out of the screen.
Audio volume pretty low with some feedback coming through here. Yep, shoot through the feedback.
It's no good.
When
Not
are you gonna
blind.
okay, when are you going to do an expose on bank credit creation?
Well, good question. We did a few during, probably in 2020 on the whole debate with Stephanie Kelton stuff. You know, the new money theory stuff and the fact that central banks, if you've got your own currency, you can issue, you can basically just create money and there's no need for tax. You can just give money to whatever projects you want because you're a sovereign nation. The states can't do it. This is the theory behind it. There is a few tweaks though. There's the radical guys that just say you can issue money, just pay for everything by issuing money. It's inflationary. We see inflation coming through now from all the money that was printed earlier on. The guts of it though is there is still a need for tax because money always floats to the top unless you have government taxing people so they can redistribute.
And how's that going?
The money. Well, it's not going very well. I mean,
top-
you wouldn't want to be a poor person
The top's getting quite a bit bloated.
or a young person or anybody really. I mean,
All right, here's one. Question, have you had any direct, this is from David, mate. Have you had any direct conversations with anyone in Parliament about the gas and why doesn't Oz Institute get taken seriously? Me personally, I have. I've spoken to a few independent politicians and I've said to them, oi, hammer the gas line. And you'll see David Pocock, he hammers it. I said, Pocock, mate, anytime the government says we can't afford it, hold up the money we're not getting for our gas. So there's and Pocock, there's a few clips of him actually dropping it. Jackie Lambie dropped it the other day. So a few politicians are picking this thing up. Obviously Labor and Liberal won't touch it, but
well, they're both paid for. This is the problem. If you look at the donations, they both get the same roughly from the gas. It's just a classic duopoly, political donations from the gas lobby going to Labor and Liberal parties. So Pocock and the Greens and so on, they can talk about it. Labor and Liberal don't. You've got a problem here too that it's foreign controlled. The grid's already majority foreign controlled, China and Singapore, these sort of places, billionaires in London. And then you've got the gas companies. Transmission, which are the big pipes that send it across the country.
they're sold off.
Well, they're owned by Jemena, which is Singapore, tax dodgers. Even tax dodgers to the point where the ATOs even come after them.
They'll do it. They'll cut a deal. They'll pay 20% fine,
Yeah.
and then they'll keep doing it.
Yeah, they're tax dodgers, and the other one is APA, which is a trust structure, which is or it was. I think that might have changed recently, the corporate ownership. But trusts don't pay tax; their members do, so that's at 15%, not 30, generally, more or less. But the guts of it with gas is we export 80% of gas. We're the world's biggest LNG exporter. And the travesty is that every 2 months in the Murdoch press, there was one last week, we did something on this, gas shortage crisis.
Yeah.
And there is no gas shortage crisis
No.
because we're one of the world's biggest gas producers. The question is
Well,
policy
well, we do
settings.
have a shortage because we've given it all away.
Yeah.
So Japan have it all,
Yeah.
China have it all, and
Yeah.
South Korea, I think, are the top three when I did my googling on that. And so yeah, we have a shortage. And in latest scam, I just did a YouTube video on this. WA have just agreed to export their gas, onshore gas. It was previously like you only Kerry Stokes, lucky billionaire, could export his gas. Now they've just allowed them to export 20% of the onshore gas, which experts are saying links the domestic Western Australian gas price to the international market and prices going up, which is why gas is expensive on the East Coast. So they've essentially looked at what the East Coast done, seen the complete shit show, paying gas prices went up 358% or something like that during the wartime, which is still going. And they looked at that and they went, you know what? Well, let's give the billionaires, let's allow them to sell it overseas again. So I was listening to another podcast on my Sane podcast network today, and a Woodside ad's come up. It's coming up on my podcast, Woodside ads.
Nice.
But we do a disendorsement on the podcast. If you've just heard, so we're going to take their money, but then we're going to disendorse.
Good.
And so Woodside are being like, oh, like cheap, reliable energy. It's not cheap. Not cheap at all. But if they keep saying it, then people will think
it's a massive policy stuff up, because what they knew was going to happen when they set up the LNG stuff, and this was under Labor, in fact, in 2013, so both parties are equally guilty on this front, there was going to be export price parity. And that's the fancy economist's name for the price at which you sell your gas overseas is the price which you'll get for it domestically as well.
Yeah,
and
which
that's what's
is
happened.
crap.
So you get your gas. If you track one gas molecule, it comes up through the Bass Strait, gets piped all the way to say it comes from all over the place, gets to Gladstone in Queensland to the port, then it goes 17,000 k's, or is it 23,000 k's, to Japan, and then they distribute it in Japan, and often, the Japanese retail customers on their bills are paying less for Australian gas than Australians are paying in Melbourne, which is right next to the Bass Strait.
I would love.
And that's shipping costs, and that's costs of turning it into LNG, which is like $3 a gigajoule or whatever the figure is. So all those costs.
But the gas they use to turn it into LNG, they use for free, don't they?
Well, it's their gas.
Yeah, because we gave it to them. So it costs them nothing to use the gas to turn it into LNG. Whereas if they had to pay us at the beginning of the pipe, they'd be paying us for what they're exporting and for what they're using to turn it into LNG. And all of a sudden your export industry is...
No, we're totally conned by the gas lobby. They're very powerful. They got their little guys hanging around Canberra at Maisie's Cafe in Parliament House, you know, at every opportunity to schmooze a politician. And
I tried my best to schmooze them. Do we have any other questions there? I might have one here.
Look, I've got some from, because we're across multiple channels. So I might jump from someone from the West Report, if that's all good with you guys. How do you guys not become, so MF is their name, makes sense for this question. What do you guys do to not become completely jaded, disenfranchised or miserable, being so aware of everything going on?
Well, actually, we just discussed that before coming. I'll have to reiterate.
I'm a fresh face. You're the guy who's been in this a while.
Thanks for that, and shout out to Patreon, because you guys enable us to do this stuff. Basically, well, I was discussing, like, you know, Conrad's just become a bit of a star, so he's on that part of the trajectory where your creative juices are firing, and if you've seen it, you know, you've seen it all after a few years, and like we've had 4 lawsuit threats this year, and one actual one we got served the other day. That's a hassle. The actual creation of the content, you do become jaded, but I guess, I mean, I got this mate as a doctor, and he's the head of emergency at one of the big hospitals, and he's an absolute legend, this bloke. I went to school with him, and he goes, I don't know how you do this journalism stuff. And here's a guy that he does the car crashes when they come in with all the mangled victims and stuff like that. It's the same as the doctor, really. You just don't have a personal relationship with every patient. You try not to get too emotionally involved.
So you have no politician friends?
I've got plenty of politician friends.
But too cozy with them.
We stay a bit of a distance in public, but I mean, you don't want to get too close to them, because if you are too close, then your independence is compromised. It's as simple as that, and it's a follow the money thing. If you're funded by community, then you don't have corporate agendas. But the minute you get, lunch is all right.
Sweet corporate cash.
Lunch is all right. But on the jaded issue, yeah, I mean, you do. You have to treat it as, a business. But you just get, worn out by, you do get worn out by stuff, which means you've got to operate with a sense of humour. That's what I do. And you do too, don't you?
Yeah.
You just go, well, you've got to take the piss. And some stuff is so heavy, some news, you just got to go, I'm not going to take this seriously.
Yeah, I think there's like two ways that I think about it. One is I think you have to operate in like two frames of mind and switch off half your brain sometimes when it gets to you a little bit. You just have to walk outside. We live in Australia. Beach is just there. You go for a surf and you realize actually things are pretty good. Things in your little bubble, if you're lucky enough to have a nice little bubble. Things are, sun's out, I can pay my bills. Wow, isn't that great? Life's pretty good in some areas. And then you can get back into like the big picture stuff. But then the other half of it is you got the capitalism drive. Mate, you make your living and I now make my living because the politics is a shit show. And your job is to call it out. My job is to explain what you've called out. And we'll always have work. Yeah, we can look at it that way.
Or alcohol. You can drink. You can drink and you can get rid of the stress that way. But of course, that's a...
Shout out to the patrons who help them with that.
Well, that's where Westy spends his money.
No, well, I don't all the time. It's a double-edged sword, though, because, in Newcastle, mate, the surf up here is just, even when it's rubbish conditions like this, is epic compared to Sydney. So you've got to have a bit of an out otherwise. But that's like any job. You need your out, your family time, your relaxed time, your friends' time.
You've got to forget about it every now and then.
Just do the job. Content creation.
And
get the content. Deliver the content.
And look at history, right? Things have been way worse. So, it's not that bad here. I mean, some stuff's bad.
It's good.
And we've got to keep it in check.
It's good though. But there's a lot of diversion. This is the problem. In the old days, when I started as a journo, there wasn't anything, there was no PRs. Literally, no. I remember as a young reporter ringing the head of Woolworths. Now they'd be guarded by 100 communications experts whose job it is not to communicate, to stonewall. And you've got lawyers, and there's this massive thing around every corporation, every government. There's chiefs of staff and multiple people on the media team, and all these people, they spend their whole day working out how they can con the media. And when it comes to mainstream media, they do a pretty fine job.
They do a damn fine job.
Cool. Do we want? Let's go. I'm gonna go to Instagram now.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of good ones on there. Holy shit, we've got 400 people tuning in across all the channels.
Oh, that's good. I've got one from one of my punts.
Yeah, do it.
On LLW, how do we move past the bullshit arguments around the housing crisis? Is it possible for much more broad Nightingale House, I don't know what that means, Nightingale House scheme to be rolled out massively across Australia? What's a Nightingale House?
Social housing, is that what they mean?
Don't know, we'd have to Google it.
Post-war, post-Great Depression, coming to the actual Prime Minister, but they invested incredible amounts of money into home ownership, and that obviously led people out of poverty and led them to becoming a wealthier, the wealthiest generation that's ever existed, boomers.
Okay.
So why don't we apply that? This is what I'm taking as that.
Let's go with that. Let's say it's that. Yeah, is it possible for us to actually solve this housing crisis and just get around this BS? I saw a clip today. I think you even sent it to me. Someone sent me a clip today where the housing minister, what's her name? Is it Claire?
Oh yeah, Katie Gallagher.
Katie Gallagher. She's being pressed on housing, and he's like, "Well, do you want housing prices to come down? Obviously, we don't want to crash. We know that's we're not being silly." And she's like, "No." She essentially said,
"Well,
no."
every other market crashes."
Straight up, no, I do not want housing prices to come down.
Yeah,
but this because they're all personally invested, and most politicians, you just look at their disclosures, they've all got investment properties, so they won't change the Airbnb tax rort because they're all doing it.
Yeah.
Some of them have got 4 properties, 6 properties even. There was one bloke in the last regime in the coalition that had 30 odd properties. So, but the problem is the housing. It's been made an investment, right? And there's so many breaks. There's the CGT, capital gains tax relief. There's negative gearing, which is another incentive to load up on more debt. So the banks love it because they flog more debt. There's the foreign investment stuff. I mean, the coalition actually said the one good policy they've got is ban foreign investment for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because it's all hidden. There's secrecy and transparency issues. So
Yes.
there's all these, for instance, Chinese or Singaporeans or Americans or whoever, a lot of Europeans that own property. It's in trusts. You don't have to disclose it. There's no beneficial ownership register, and it can be black money. So the AML, the money laundering legislation. I've got to go through that, but that's another. So it's all nose towards the investor, not the homeowner.
Yeah.
And they stopped. If you look at the charts, from the 1950s on, governments just social housing build just as plummeted, and they just gave it away because of the neoliberal thing. Like, let the market sort it out.
It's got to do a battery change, lads. Holding screen for a couple of seconds.
All right, we'll be back in 10 seconds. I mean. We're back.
Cool. Yeah, Matt.
Do you think we're just locked in this idea? I was just watching Utopia. Watch that show?
Yeah.
And they just did, that's like season 3 or something. And they did an episode where they're building the train to Melbourne. And all the stakeholders, the investors of this, there's all these middlemen just skimming money. And the guy has, the storyline is this old dude comes in and he looks at it with a pencil. He's like, nah, mate, it doesn't cost that much, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you could do it for half the price. And then he's telling the government, he's like, how about we just do it ourselves? It's like, oh no, you couldn't do it. Oh, we couldn't. So we just have this idea that we can't do anything ourselves. So now we've opened up, Albo's thing, which Dutton, like, maybe rightfully is pushing back against because he knows it's the one good thing he can actually talk to, which is stopping foreign investments. Now Albo's like, well, how do we get people to invest in houses? Well, you could just do it yourself with our tax dollars.
Just build a government, a land com on the, just build a government just make a government corporation. And just say, we're going to build houses now.
But that idea is so radically laughed at and dismissed instantaneously by anybody. It's as if it's completely impossible. Like, we've lost any imagination. It's like, no, we have to put money into a fund, then wait for that money to maybe get something, and then we'll siphon it to a property developer who's going to skim it, build 80% of housing for wealthy people, and then 20% maybe will be affordable for them, and then maybe we'll up our housing quota by X amount, and then the units that they built, we removed the red tape, and now the units are faulty, and now the people who bought the units are on the hook for 10 grand because the guy that built them.
Well, they privatise the inspectors as well.
Yes.
So there's a rort going on there.
Yes. My friend just bought a unit, and dealing with that problem, the bloke that built it went broke.
Yeah.
Now stuck with like thousands of dollars for she's spending 5 to 10 grand to fix this unit because it's not up to code.
Yeah.
And this guy's not liable, off the hook, and building more stuff on a different name.
That's what limited liability companies are all about, mate. You just shut up shop and,
What a friggin'...
But, market-wise, there's a problem with a market when it never crashes and never falls. It stalls. And they're saying we're in a slump at the moment.
Yes, I saw that where they're like, prices have slowed to only rising 2% or something.
So if you look at the returns from the share market, it's all about risk. Share market is meant to have higher returns than the property market because property is less risky, right? But the property market, the market's rooted, and this is where the government policy settings are wrong, because it always goes up to the point where disposable income of average households buying a property, you'd have to go to, Alice Springs or somewhere. So the point is that the market is broken because they've given too many incentives to investors so they need to remove those incentives. The answer is there. We've written it 100 times. Get rid of this, fix that, bang. The Airbnb tax fraud, all this stuff nose towards investors and special interest groups. This is the problem. So the ASX should be producing bigger returns than property. Property market produces what, 10% a year?
That's a lot.
Which is a lot for property. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, except in bubbles. And when the ASX is producing what, 7% a year? Something. I mean, it varies from year to year, of course.
I was watching an economist on YouTube. I think it's like Macro on Money or something. Do you know that guy? Yeah. He's a good... Anyway, he's some kind of foreign economist, and he was talking about the housing crisis in Canada, the UK, and Australia. And he mentioned like three things. It's like it's potentially NIMBYs, it's the financialization of the property market, and it's immigration. Like those...
Immigration's a big one.
A mix of those three things.
Yeah.
And for the unique one, he said, for when it's whether the irrationality of the property market, he's like, what's an indicator of that is when there's lots of vacant properties. And what have we got in Melbourne at least? Lots of vacant properties. Because it's better for people to just buy a house, can't even bother putting renters in it, because that's effort. I'm just going to sit on it because I know it's just going to kind of...
If you're a foreign investor, there's plenty of people just park.
Yeah, you just park cash.
And what I tried to get is out of Sydney Water. You can do the same for... I tried Melbourne Water too. Can we have the amount of properties, please, which where the water isn't connected? Because you know, if the water's not connected, then you know it's vacant, right?
Can you get that data?
You can't. I said, sorry, we don't have that data, or we're not
FOI
going to give it to you.
Or not?
No, you can.
You could do it.
Did he?
That's how he did the stuff in Melbourne, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, you could do a GIPper on it. That's the state government stuff. You do a GIPper.
There's some sort of database, I'm pretty sure.
Well, when I tried, mind you, it was 4 or 5 years ago. I thought, let's get the water data, because we'll know how many... I mean, there's places opposite where I live where the lights are never on. We know there's no one there.
Yeah.
So...
Sorry, what's the address of the place? You just let me know.
I went home. You guys can hear me on stream. I went home to my hometown up in Port Stephens a couple of weeks ago, right? And I did a cycle around where I grew up. Now they're all multi-million-dollar mansions near beaches and stuff. 1 in every 4 homes was a fucking holiday rental, or just no one lived there. And you can tell no one lives there because there's no cars, bikes. Like the house is abandoned, right? It's definitely just an Airbnb or some shit. 1 in 4, and the locals can't afford to live there. I can't afford to live in my own hometown.
Well, I mean, if you look at Mudgee, for instance, right, where it's a 2-hour drive from Sydney, right? It's the wine region. There's a lot of sort of expensive degustation menu type of restaurants there. So you get the Sydney wealthy people driving up there for parties or just weekends. The Airbnb, they might pay $1,000 for the weekend for a couple of nights in the Airbnb, right? The local people that work in the service industry and so on that live in Mudgee can only afford to pay $600 or $800 a week. So they would rather
have $600 a week. Far out.
Well, we're talking Mudgee too. We're not talking Sydney, mate.
I know.
Well, Newcastle now is a bit
Even
elite, isn't it?
A bit steep,
it's a bit elite, yeah. But this is the problem, and they get to claim, this is the Airbnb rort, deductions for 365 days a year if it is advertised for let for rental on Airbnb. So it's not like when somebody's actually there living in it, which is 2 days a week. And that's why there's so many expensive places on Airbnb, because people just want to claim deductions for their holiday house. If somebody wants to pay...
This almost got turned into an Airbnb.
Really?
Yeah. If somebody wants to pay $2,000 for your 2-bedroom place for the Airbnb, maybe at Christmas, then you can... Otherwise, they're claiming deductions. And I've said to all the parties and everything, you guys, come on. It's an easy fix. The ATO agrees and they put out a guidance note, but they've got to clamp down on it because it's a
anything
rort.
hard. Well, Craig on YouTube says property's at 6.8% a year over 30 years, he reckons.
6.8%, right, okay.
But that, probably more. I want to know the last 10 if Craig's looking at that. That'd be interesting.
Well,
Chris just bought us some beers. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
He gave us $20 to buy some beers.
Done.
What a legend.
Can't hear Punter behind camera.
That's me. You should be. I'm loud.
Okay. Well,
you should. Have you got that thing on over there?
I got another question here. I got one. It is. What are our thoughts and recommendations to help keep punters focused on policy over party in the wake of Dutton's culture wars to distract from shithouse nuclear dream and other policy slip-ups?
Oh, it's the ultimate question.
Yeah.
It's the eternal question. Well, they don't. The parties don't want to, because if they were to focus on policy, then there'd be just.
How do we nudge people towards focusing on policy?
Well, you do it. You make it fun.
I try.
That's why you're such a tearaway on the social media, because you've distilled the policy
know
problems
if it-
and issues, and that works.
Do you reckon
And
it works?
totally. And I've been doing this for years, not at your level and to a different demographic. But if you grab the difficult stuff
Yeah.
and you feel us, and you don't have to run it past an editor who's going to block it because they advertise with you,
Yeah.
then you can distill it into the simplest terms, which you've done with the gas and so on. And that's the key. The problem is you've got a failure in the mainstream media where vested interests, because
They want us distracted.
totally. And so,
Because they're shareholders. So as far as I understand it,
Yeah.
they're the shareholders that
Yeah.
that fund the mainstream media,
Yeah.
and the status quo is making them rich.
well,
And if you get upset about the status quo, you want it changed. So nothing is
Yeah.
more dangerous than change to the corporate status
no,
quo.
they don't want change.
So they will use culture war. Peter Dutton will use culture war to distract everybody from the issues. But then I wonder if we're going to hit a boiling point, if we're not now. Because if this housing thing does not get solved, I saw homelessness is up 20% or something crazy.
Well, one of my mates is an economist for one of the major banks. He's a young guy meaning in his sort of probably mid-30s or something. And he said, I ran into him down at the shops, and he said to me, I hadn't seen the guy for like a year or two. And the first thing he said to me was, when are they going to get the... when you have a revolution, when are they going to get the machetes out?
pitchforks.
Get the pitchforks out.
Yes, that's the tool of revolution.
When
You
are
think
they,
we're
and
rich
this
enough
is
to
a
say-
CBA economist that'll be on 300k a year. When are they going to get the pitchforks out? And I knew exactly what he was talking
At least
about
a couple more bill.
because we're looking at it because he knows the housing crisis is going to get worse. They're saying, it's all over now because the emergency helpline calls are down and stuff, but it's not. It's a serious policy problem for Australians, and frankly, it's unfair. I mean, a roof over your head, like food, should be an eternal human right.
I was chatting to...
especially in a rich country.
So you know who hates me a lot?
You.
And I've
Jordan. Hey!
Well, I mean, we'll see. I'm still waiting for a reply on that email I sent old Jordan.
You've answered so many questions just in that little statement.
But who I've been told multiple times from multiple different people, Labor diehards really don't like me. Is because I criticise the government.
Oh yeah, no,
whoever the government is, and I was having this discussion with a Labor diehard on the Insta chats, and I'm just doing my thing. I'm going, housing's broken. Your 0.02% fixed tweak around the edge for first home buyers, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's, good on you for doing barely anything. And
Yeah.
and he was just kind of like, oh, well, we got to do... He was kind of defending the status quo.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, imagine we're American and you and I are talking about healthcare. And you're telling me that, for-profit only housing, for-profit only healthcare is good enough and it's not bad and we need to just tweak it. You'd think we're nuts. But we come to Australia right now, we're talking about housing. The only reason housing gets built is to make property developers money. Yeah. Not saying that you can, sure, do that. That's fine. Do things for profit, that's fine.
It's been financialised like the US health system.
It blows my mind. Like, what's the difference between a house and Medicare? What's the difference? No, you need both to have a quality of life.
Yeah.
So it breaks my brain that we just, that building houses directly for...
And we're not talking about beachfront mansions in Newcastle, Sydney, whatever.
I mean, I will take one though.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That'd be nice.
I mean, there is still housing commission down there.
Yeah, good for you.
But look at all these new developments popping up, and they don't put infrastructure in. They build the houses, but then they expect the council to pick up the tab.
Well, ultimately,
high density, rezoning laws.
It's the government's duty to provide a safety net. It's as simple as that. And I mean, but you talk about how your life is framed, and we live in this. I mean, the Australian healthcare system is so good, and I know there's a lot of criticism about it, but every time I go to the hospital, mate, I got frequent flyer points there, mate, I'll tell you. I mean, they privatised that. They sold the Northern Beaches Hospital to this mob that ultimately owns it in the Cayman Islands. Just a brain explosion of epic proportions.
And Aussie punters don't want this privatisation.
No, they don't want it.
It's not like you poll Aussie punters. I would put good money.
Yeah.
I'll put the $20 old mate just sent us. I'll put that on. 70 to 80% easy want less privatisation of fundamental services. And I mean, prove me wrong in the comments, whatever. If you're cool with privatising hospitals, privatising the transmission lines, like you're saying, privatising energy, privatising the fundamental things, and what we've done is wholly privatise the housing market. So we still have a private healthcare system. It still competes for special punters that want a bit more extra glasses or whatever, or maybe need it for other stuff. But your private healthcare can't be worse than what the government's providing. Because otherwise you just get on the government.
At the
I'm
government.
a public, I'm screwed.
It's healthy competition.
I'm 35 now and I didn't get private healthcare. I'm freaking screwed.
Oh, mate, I got it.
screwed.
I'll tell you what, don't get it.
Yeah, but
It's a waste of money, I tell you.
But now I can never get it.
Mate,
'cause I can't afford it.
I rang them up. I had to have the surfer's ear operation. I went deaf in one ear. I ring up my private healthcare and I said, I never claimed on you guys, but you know, by my calculations, I paid you like 60 grand over the past 15 years or something, like something massive amount. It just comes out of your thing every day. I've never claimed. And I said, but the doctor is telling me that of the 6 grand, Medicare picks up 3.5. And you guys, what you're telling me that you're only going to pay me $400, and so I had to pick up the gap.
There's always a gap.
And I just said, that's absolutely disgraceful. I mean, you only have it just in case you become a quadriplegic or something where it might be more meaningful for you, but it's only in the at your age, I wouldn't bother. I've been thinking about getting rid of it at my age. It's that bad, you know.
But if I get on it, like this is what I was doing the maths.
Yeah.
Every year I don't get on it, it goes up. My levy that I have to pay if I get on it goes up 2% a year or something.
They stitch you up anyway. It goes up 13% a year. It has for years. I mean,
yeah, that's a good point actually. Maybe
once you're on it, they're still going to stiff you. I mean, it is, but it is a joy to know that when you go to hospital, dislocated my shoulder the other day, turn up in a bit of pain, they see you through the triage, they fix you up, they send you off, they give you your thing for free, your cast.
I'm a public guy. I've had good experience.
Oh, public is.
Good, yeah.
I've had almost universally good experience. The doctors, nurses, is sensational, and it reminded me of that one in the Sicko film. Have you ever seen it?
No.
The thing by what's that US that did 9/11 movie? Michael Moore. Oh. The opening scene is a guy in the country in America somewhere chops off his fingers, 2 fingers, with his lathe outside in the backyard, right? And he goes and he's talking to Michael Moore saying, yeah, so look, I only had, $10,000 and it was $10,000 a finger to have my fingers put on. So I had to choose. You wouldn't want to be a guitar player. I had to choose which finger. So I chose that one and they put that one back on. I mean, and with children too, having to make those sort of decisions is bizarre. So it needs to be protected at all costs.
Well, to get topical.
And to not, I think we're going on the same path, to not put a hard answer on this question, but obviously when you get people that go bankrupt from health insurance, like in America, when people have no other option, they're going to end up doing stuff.
And the figures,
that's where I was
with the CEO. I'm not going to make a judgment call on that.
That's where I was going. The whole CEO getting shot, and apparently and fact check all of this. I've just been osmosising it, but the inscribings in the casings was like delay and deny, which is I've done a video on how insurance. I got it from you. Delay, deny, obfuscate is how insurance companies get out of paying what they're due. And
insurance companies, and Qantas and Jetstar, and Virgin.
I think it's just how corporations rulebook 101. But what's interesting is like the online reaction. And I think what happens is something happens like this. There's an online reaction, and then let's call them the cultural elite, because there's various different. They have this reaction of like, how dare they make light of murder? Like, yes, it's murder. It's pretty messed up, right?
Yeah.
No one should endorse murder. I can't believe I have to say that, but obviously that's the case. But when the online reaction is like, well, how many people did this dude kill by denying? His whole industry is based on making money at the expense of people living and dying. And when the online reaction is so almost in support of literal murder of a CEO, and then the cultural elite look at it and go, oh, I'm outraged by the internet. How bad is this? Oh, people are losing it. Look at the warning signs. Read the temperature. Because if this
and you don't have to condone it.
No.
It's the do you condemn Hamas October 7th thing. Of course I condemn Hamas.
Yes.
You don't have to condone it. You don't have to be one, but there's more nuance to it. But you're right. And we've arrived at that point where CEOs, and this is corporatocracy. This is the reason I went independent, because the rise in power of corporations has brought us to this point, and this is why this is a benchmark, because this is the first murder of a corporate executive that I can think of. I was reading who wasn't shot by his wife or something, like this is the first one, and it's radical.
Is deliberately, I did this because of your position, your role, and your position within this society.
It's a radical next step in society where we're right at right now. It's a big story, and in fact, what's going to happen at the corporate end? they're all going to start hiring teams of bodyguards. So good for the security industry.
Private security investments, not investments, inquiries have gone up 200%.
Well, they would.
You know,
Well, if you're earning $100 million a year from your Wall Street job, you're going to spend a bit on,
You could just pay your bloody tax, right? And the cops would be well funded to protect everybody, not just rich people. Imagine that kind of utopia where it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich, you get to be protected from crime. I know it's a radical idea, but I thought I'd just put that out there.
Just a little fun fact that I'd like to throw into this conversation is that, again, I can get fact checked on this one. Inequality is greater than what the French Revolution was.
Really? Well, I'm not. Well,
and what happened at the French Revolution?
It would depend how you measured it.
There's some. Look, I'm perpetually online, so I see a lot of shit. But I did see the metrics for that, and I will find. I can find it if I can. But
I was reading a book called The Ministry of the Future, and it's this kind of documentary dystopian fiction novel, but based on kind of reality as climate changes over time, and things get more and more dire, and it kind of follows the radicalization of a guy that was in India. India's obviously suffering the most. Pretty much millions of people died because it was so hot. This is like a mythical thing based on what could potentially happen. Anyway, this guy gets radicalized because he was there. He couldn't cool off. There was no AC. He literally barely survived. He survived because he was young. Anyway, he gets radicalized, and they describe this society where billionaire CEO planes are being shot out of the sky by drones and it's called, like, the people doing it, they're like, they're climate criminals. So we use drones to just bomb private jets because they're the climate criminals causing suffering for millions. And it's this interesting book where it just talks about, you got the extremist wing, which is stuff like that happens. Then you've got the corptocracy wing trying to solve it with like a carbon coin or something like that. Yeah. But it's interesting to see the solutions. But one of them, don't ignore what will happen when people get radicalized, when they feel like they have no options and they feel like their protests keep getting shut down because the laws are getting stricter and stricter and stricter, and you're risking more and more jail time to just exercise your like the guys that were in Newcastle here, that what they went through to like just blockade a court,
170 arrests,
ceremonially block a.
And you don't have to agree with their position. No. It's the principle.
Yes, everyone should be down for protest because, if you can't protest something you don't like, good luck if it's something.
Well, it's happening in social media. TikTok, they're trying to shut that down in America for obvious reasons. And the under 16 social media ban. I mean, yes, I've seen the harms of kids and social media, but the fact is, you can't just stop people. And that Leo Puglisi guy was funny, like doing his exams. He said, well, I wouldn't have been able to start my media company because I was on social media under 16. Like, it is bizarre, and I think they'll get around it anyway through an ISP or something like that. I mean,
they'll just VPN. They'll just ship
VPN, not ISP.
But the whole thing's just a virtue signal, right? This is what government does.
No, it's literally to stop. It's to stop them. It's to keep them within the duopoly thinking and keep them within the framework.
Work. That's the whole point.
No, but this is what it's all about. And there's no analysis backing it. They just decided to do it. Because Murdoch ran a campaign going, save our kids.
Yes.
It's a stupid idea, and it's bad for just freedom of speech and knowledge generally. I think it's silly. I mean, you teach children to swim. You teach them you teach them about the evils of social media. You teach them not stranger danger. It's just like teaching kids anything else, isn't it? It's up to the family to do this stuff.
I would come down as probably less libertarian than you on this, but only because I think when we go into the conversation of free speech versus not free speech and censoring certain information, this crosses over with the misinformation bill.
Yeah.
We got to stop people saying things. The one thing no one's talking about, bloody algorithms. We have laws already. A newspaper is a publisher. Guess what a bloody algorithm is? An algorithm is a publisher who no one's controlling.
Deciding what you can read.
And so all the while this conversation's going on, no one's talking about what's in the algorithm. Why can't we see what's going on? Why can't we see what it's promoting? Like, we need the real solution to this is a conversation around, we need access to it, we need labels on them, and kids under 16, no algorithms. Chronological feed, no ads, no algorithms. They still get their friends, they still get to chat. In fact, I would sign up for an under 16
You mean they don't get sports bet ads?
Yes.
Conrad, we had it. MySpace.
Yes.
That's what MySpace was.
Yeah, you guys would be my top friends for sure. Kick Tom out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I think they're
Rabbit
getting off scot-free. Every time we talk about free speech and we're not talking about algorithms. And the Musks of the world want to talk about always free speech, but people?
Oh, he's a complete hypocrite. I've been algoed on Twitter, YouTube. The worst, of course, is what's his name? The guy who owns Facebook and Zuck's Facebook and Instagram. They're the worst. TikTok's probably the best. But Twitter, you know, and YouTube. Remember when we did a Israel-Gaza thing on YouTube? It just crashed. They just don't mention the war, and they just choked us, suffocated us, you know. And it was like, so you will get algoed, and it is a huge problem. Look, I agree, and it's all secret. There's no disclosure of it.
Easy, non-controversial thing. Which punters, if you disagree with this, definitely let me know. Yeah. But would you be opposed? For if you want to operate an algorithm publishing service in Australia, you must allow back-end access to researchers, to government, to like whoever wants access to that data so that they can run numbers and go, hey, did you know that it promotes this post 10x more than this post? And then create freaking warning labels on it being like, this algorithm is proven to prioritize incendiary, angry content over factual information.
But that's literally what Twitter X does now.
Well, community knows.
I mean, if you look at some of the idiots who's on Twitter whose things are going through the roof, and they like you to stay on there. So if you're linking stuff, they don't like that. You get pushed down the algo.
I want to see it on the algorithm. Yeah. If you post external link, it will be buried.
I've gone backwards in 3 years. I was getting 1,000 a month extra on Twitter. Yeah. I got to Elon comes in, bang, and I've literally gone from 101,000 back to 98 or something. It would have been now at 150, and Elon. And I'm not a huge critic of Elon, but yeah, I mean...
He does have the cult following online.
He's a
messianic figure, for sure.
Yeah, he is. But it hasn't been good for me personally. I mean, but...
Yeah. I'm on it, but it's a cesspool. I can't...
It's a cesspool. The abuse is unbelievable, but...
Abuse, you can call abuse free speech, but I just
don't want to go there. Blue Sky, where the ex-Twitter guys has taken Twitter and gone, here we go, call it Blue Sky.
Is it still him? Is it still ex-Twitter? Is it still Jack Dorsey?
He's involved, I think. But in any case,
left, but anyway.
In any case, there's a walkout day, inauguration day, when people are meant to walk off Twitter when Trump gets in. But
now social media platforms are tribal too. There you go. Jack Dorsey quits Blue Sky.
Yeah, no.
There you go.
There you go. He's out.
The hope I have when I look at Blue Sky, I'm only on it just because I'm on bloody everything.
Yeah.
Is that I like the fact how you can select your feed. You can go chronological. You can go friends you follow. You can go discover, and then you can even, if you built a list to share, you could build a list of journos you follow. Yeah. Then I could sub to your list, kind of like a Spotify playlist, and then I can go, I just want news, and I'm like, I'm sick of news. Yeah. I just want dumb shit. Click on
dumb shit.
And then see that. So I want to see algorithms go that way where we're in control. Where I get to decide what the algorithm shows me, where I get editorial choice, where the algorithm works for me. And I don't think it'll happen, but if the government came in and made these bludgers expose the inner workings of their algorithm, then suddenly they'd have some accountability.
Well, the only reason the government...
I want to put something in there, because there's always a Twitter clone popping up every 4 to 6 months, right? Like Threads, Mastodon, whatever.
Yeah.
The reason that Threads didn't work is that it's the same algorithm as Instagram, right? Like it's still driven by radical engagement.
Well, I didn't bother with Threads because I know that Zuckerberg is such a censor guy, a muzzler.
Yeah.
So at least Blue Sky has the promise.
What's Blue Sky's business model?
How they're going to make money.
And if they're going to do the same thing, we could enjoy it like Twitter for a couple of years, and then as soon as corporate money comes on in, then all of a sudden... I mean, YouTube's done pretty well. I love YouTube. The algorithm is great. It shows me what I want to see.
There's critiques of Google as a head company, but YouTube itself,
YouTube as a platform,
is quite reasonable.
Personally, I think it's the best. I get paid from it, which is amazing. Instagram pays me Zip, which is...
Really?
Yeah.
You've got 200,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You don't get anything from Insta.
No, nothing. Freaking Zip. And Facebook won't pick up my stuff. No boomers want to watch my videos.
Millions and millions of views.
Yeah.
And you're giving it to them for free, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Subscribe to us on Patreon, guys.
Yeah, Patreon.
Punters and West Report.
We can go to another question. That was some good rants there about some topics.
It's a bit in-house, isn't it? About how much money we're making or not making.
We're so poor.
Mate, YouTube.
Look at us streaming on a 1:30.
Mate, I'm happy you're getting a bit from YouTube advertising because I don't know, we're in the wrong business. You've surpassed us in audience already, but we get pocket.
You're not clickbaity enough. You just got to say something.
You couldn't make a living out of it. You just had to eat bread. It's really poor. But if you're
Enough to sustain.
Taylor Swift, you'd be able to make a living out of it.
Well, look, we might be getting into YouTube Live a bit more because they're making a big push to monetize.
Are we on
this
YouTube
kind of
at the
stuff.
moment?
Yeah, we made $20 already. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, that's just donations, but we get cents per click as well.
Is that on? That seems to have gone off, or that's just the image?
No, you're still on. Oh, it's just mine.
So what's the next question?
Don't get me started on that. How do you feel about mobile speed cameras being partially owned by banks? That when the police went on strike, they'd sit behind mobile speed cameras with their lights on. Do these things show that the cameras are just money-making schemes dressed up as public good? Do you reckon these mobile speed cameras are just revenue raisers?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Nothing more.
Well, New South Wales, didn't they get rid of the signs? The Libs got rid of the signs. Fines went through the roof. Everyone got outraged and suddenly realised, hey, this is just a tax on a middle class. This is what I think a lot of these... my mate in Brisbane, I didn't post about it, but I should have. He's got a little one in the back and his wife's driving, so she got the ticket. He put his seatbelt under his arm like this because he was reaching back to like settle his kid. Camera.
I got him for seatbelt.
Seatbelt. Guess how much?
300.
What? For a seatbelt?
$1,200.
In one hit?
One hit, $1,200. And his wife
That is massive.
copped the hit. And
is that a flat penalty? Like it's not like in
Queensland,
Norway where it's percentage of your income?
no, that's like, they're definitely not doing
What I'd like to do is find out, I've tried to GIPA this or FOI it, I'd like to find out the kickback, the bonus scheme that the council rangers get.
Ooh, for tickets?
From the, what do they call it when you get the state revenue thing? What's it called again? There's a SDRO. When you get your bill from the SDRO. I'd like to know the incentive scheme, how much they're incentivised, whether the rangers themselves are on a bonus scheme, but whether it's the councils, because a lot of it's pretty vexatious, like you're parking in somewhere which is totally innocuous.
My suburb.
Yeah.
My neighbour just came up to me the other day because I was parked, there's a footpath and there's a green strip and then there's the thing. My car was on like probably half a metre on the green strip, not on the footpath.
Yeah.
He was saying once a year, rangers will roll down, give everyone a ticket for parking on the green strip.
Once a year.
Once a year randomly.
Yeah, big hit.
It's like, what kind of public good is like...
It's no public good, and you got to watch the nose to curb, the rear to curb thing too, because it doesn't matter rear to curb. Who's it hurting? You're still in, if you're in your space.
We all got cameras in the reverse now anyway, right?
Are you ready for my most controversial opinion of this whole podcast?
Yes.
I
think paying for parking is fantastic. I think you should pay
No,
for
I'm
parking.
with you, actually,
I
I
think
know.
it's we need to focus on public transport and other infrastructure that increases foot traffic and walking and biking and whatever.
You bloody greenie.
I know. I think I'm happy to pay for parking. Like I can't afford it some days.
Well,
but
here's the real pitch that no one will tell you about parking, even though I whinge about it all the time. And I always want
it's
free
annoying.
parking. If parking's free, we all pay way more for it. Because to have those spaces there in development, it's the people that live and pay the rates for lots of parking and not having parking because everyone's parked there. Because when you pay for it, you don't stay there as long, you don't leave cars there, etc., etc. So the cost to you individually, a taxpayer, we all pay it, even if you use the parking or not. So there is like I have to find the Economist podcast to listen to, but there is a solid economics argument being like parking and having car spaces everywhere. Really expensive for the taxpayer. Prob's not worth it. So in a weird way, I kind of agree, even though...
But the laws don't really catch up with what we need to do. It's all reactive. Like I remember I started driving before drink driving. Random breath testing came in. So
Did you, mate?
And and the culture in those days was one for the road was literally one for the road, one on the road.
One for the road.
But it wasn't deemed to be a bad thing. Drink driving was, you'd hear horror stories and it wasn't exactly embraced as a great thing, but it wasn't like now you just go, are you right to drive? You're right to drive. Are you right to drive? If somebody's had, half a drink. So the culture's changed, but that's been a good change because it saved lives.
Yeah, that's
so
a good change, sure.
So these are good changes that should have done carbon tax years ago, but the word tax is just too heavy and too politicised.
Yeah, I think people...
I'm getting smashed for that parking comment, by the way.
everyone wants to
fire this guy.
Do they? What do they want?
They just I disagree.
And parking, everyone's all right. Hey, that's cool, guys. But
It's a democracy.
it's democracy. It's revenue raising. It's true. You got another question there on your end?
Did you check your WhatsApp group?
Oh, no.
So we've got a paid question, which
Ooh,
I'm happy to respect.
Are we on WhatsApp as well?
Stefan.
Are we on WhatsApp? Are we on?
It's not live.
No, I got it
I'm
here.
using him to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
So this is from Stefan. With all the very real problems you guys are discussing, do you see a future where these things get better for us regular punters? He hates being pessimistic, but it seems like it will get worse before it gets better. This is a sentiment that a lot of my punters, really cynical, don't think there's any hope for change. They see it getting worse. Do you think that?
Look, frankly, I'm glad, that I'm not a young person these days without a house, like as I used to be, because simply the maths, disposable income, and then you're a debt slave for decades. You're a debt slave for decades.
Yeah.
You're paying thousands a month to a bank, which is charging you your premium interest rate. They should turn Australia Post into a bank and lend at the sovereign bond rate. It's a no-brainer.
Once again, doing something ourselves that's cheaper and more efficient.
Compete with the banks. The government should compete with the banks. They sold Commonwealth Bank. Everybody made a mozza, but of course no competition because the beer. If you go to the pub and you buy a beer, right? It's $10 a beer or $9 a beer or whatever. Resch's CUB is the same price as Tui's. So many industries.
Well, it's all monopoly.
Compete only on it's duopolies and so on, but they only compete They compete in telcos. They used to compete in aviation a bit, but they're not as much as usual now. They seem to be getting together a bit. But what I'm saying is, a lot of this stuff, we're a nation of duopolies. They only compete on marketing and branding. Like the banks, these beautiful ads that cost millions to make.
Yeah.
But it's all about,
Well, we don't believe
friendly face. It's all about marketing and branding. Same with beer. Same with so many things. It's about that. It's not about price. So many industries don't compete that much on price. Woolies and Coles. I mean, let's face it. Woolies and Coles is grocery prices. Insurance prices are the one we don't see. I mean, that's a complete black box because we only pay it once a year. And they never tell you when you get your form that you've just incurred a 30% increase. The insurance was up 30%.
Well, you've just depressed everybody further.
So what? But to get to the question then. So will it get better? Well, yeah, I reckon things. The inequality thing we were discussing earlier on, that is real. Australia used to be an egalitarian society, and unfortunately it affects attitudes too, like, people being wankerish about money and so on, and this divide, it's siloing into people that work for the big institutions versus the people that don't, the haves and have-nots almost. Inequality, look at the Gini coefficient, it has got worse. That's bad for society. Yeah. Inequality is a bad thing.
And it's getting
worse. I don't know about your one, worse than the French Revolution. Josh, you'll have to furnish the arithmetic on that one, mate. But I mean, I think it will because society just moves in cycles. The only technology changes all the time. We're in this sort of exponential technology thing, AI and all this stuff. But in the end, human behaviour doesn't change at all. People still get angry, jealous, sad, happy, That doesn't change. Technology. So what I'm saying is history is cyclical rather than linear. So people say, progress,
so
everything will be
okay.
Okay.
Headed down. Is that what you're thinking? We're cycling down?
Where
are we on that cyclical?
I think we've got a problem with the democratic system because we've got, you moved on this before, status quo. The people say, we won't be able to get things done if it's a minority government. The major parties hate it. They don't want to see independence.
They really do.
Because they're running a tight shop.
That's why all the Labor guys hate me.
Well, I was wondering when they're going to hate you because they used to love me before the 2022 election.
They love you before Labor got in.
Before Labor got in.
But then they realised, your job is to hold all power to account.
No, that's a real thing for me because sympathies, the Labor guys, just as people, they've got more integrity and they're smarter than the Liberal guys, right? And Liberal, we saw the last two defections, Birmingham and Paul Fletcher, in the past 2 weeks from, Burmo goes off to
NAB or Westpac,
the old revolving door. But
to keep that duopoly in.
The point is they're just getting back into power as the main thing. The Labor is better there, but they have failed so much in so many areas.
Like low bar.
It's a low bar.
That's the unfortunate
Well, they've got the political machinery, so they're just going to sit there and hog it. And they're very scared of independence. These electoral reforms, right? The electoral reforms. If you did some
I did one on that. That's a 2024 miracle. Because I was for certain sure that they were just going to tie this up. And I wonder if Dutto's gotten greedy. because it wasn't as good a deal for Dutton as it was for Labor, but Dutton's the one getting hammered by Teals. Yeah. And so Dutton, in the long term, it's better for Dutton, but just not on paper with the money sort of situation. And I thought for sure they would squeeze that through, make it,
I don't think he's going to get the Teals back. I mean, he's going to go after outer suburban, and that's why the identity politics and the bagging of outsiders and the whole racism thing, because he's going to appeal to prejudice, and that's what he's doing. Nuclear's bullshit. I just can't. I mean, where are the costings? Where are those costings?
Any day now. Any day.
I mean, it's not bullshit that it doesn't work, but it's bullshit that it's economically, commercially viable.
But
that's
here's
the
the lesson, right? There's some good things you can learn from Trump, believe it or not, and there's some bad things to learn from Trump. And I feel like when I look at Dutton, he looked at the Trump victory and went, "Oh, great! I don't need substance. I don't need actually anything behind, like tariffs, right? Any economist will be like, well, actually price will go up, inflation will go higher. If you don't, if you do them too quick, too whatever, like tariffs are actually bad for a consumer price-wise, right? They can be used in different ways. Yeah. But it didn't matter. He stood up for it. He fought for it. People didn't understand it. They go, tariffs, sounds good. If they pay, I don't want to do it. And he won. So Dutton's like, yeah, great. I'm just going to...
He's embracing Trumpism.
I'm going to say a bunch of stuff. But here's what Dutton's missing.
But there's no reform in it. There's nothing.
No, but Dutton's missing one key attribute that Trump has that Dutton doesn't have.
Personality.
Charisma. Like, Trump is pure charisma, and he's quite funny. He's quite a funny guy to watch. He's got this thing with the crowd. His dance is like, even I'm like, yeah.
The dance is so funny, isn't it?
It's good. Whereas Dutton, I mean, hey, here's the tip for Dutton. Build the charisma, get on stage, sway for 40 minutes dancing, make people like you a little bit more, then maybe you can get away with substance-free politics.
I reckon Dutton dancing would be a good thing to see too, mate. I'd love to see Dutton dancing. Did you ever watch
his first TikTok?
Does?
Yeah. I did my first video on the West Report with that one, and he starts off. It's his first ever TikTok, and it does the classic zoom in, and he's like, "Oh, you know what's not demure? Elbows."
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
Like he's trying to be hit with the kids, but it's a...
Well, don't try and be something you're not, mate.
It's his PR department, right? It's a bunch of media advisors and
Which is
marketing executives, whereas Trump is just charismatic.
There's only one game, but it's working because the polls have moved towards Dutton, and Albo, it's partially his fault. You see news relentlessly hammering Albo for being weak. And now it's become an issue for the rest of the mainstream media. Now, Dutton, it's not about policy, it's about looking decisive. Leadership material. It's about it doesn't matter. That's why because nuclear sounds strong. Nuclear, atomic, it's all strong stuff, even if it doesn't make any sense. So
what's a big nuclear reactor, right? It's just big,
or SMRs, people with the eyes closed. What's an SMR?
Sounds awesome.
No, they don't exist anywhere in the world apart from pilot phase.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He's won a tag. This is where I'm going to give some credit to Dutton's attack. I think he's correct, but it's not sticking because of who Dutton is. Because when you look at Dutton, I don't see decisive. I know he's trying to be, but I don't see decisive. I see divisive. Albo is looking weak. He is pandering to everyone, tinkering around the edges, too afraid to nudge the boat, do anything. If Albo can learn anything from Trump, and I'll make a video. This is going to be a YouTube video because I think the clicks will be good. Albo can learn this one thing from Trump. Stand up for something. Pick something. Trump picked immigrants. They're rapists. They're coming over the border. I'm going to build a wall. Everyone's like, yeah, awesome. Even though immigrants come by planes a lot of the time. Doesn't matter, right? Stand up for it, even if it's a dumb idea, right? Stand for it. And because Albo, what's he standing for? What? He grew up in housing commission. Yeah. It's on the silver platter for him. Fix the housing crisis. He had so much license to do it. Yeah. And we would all be behind him. Who wouldn't be behind him is property developers and all the donors and all the banks and all the people that get rich.
Take him on. Take somebody on is your point. And I agree with that. You're right. You narrow the focus so you look really robust in one way. Cop all the flack because you're going to... Look, my point is with Albo sucking up to News Corp. Why would you do that? It's so masochistic.
Because then they turn around
they're going to smash him. Anyway. They're going to smash him. And Dan Andrews was good that way. I mean, Dan's completely lost me now, but he was good. Golfing. He plays off about 6 apparently. But anyway, no, he's what he did is he just cut out news. He just went straight on Twitter, straight down the social media, did his own thing. He just went bugger it. You guys going to hassle me? And he turned up to press conference, you get these silly questions trying to trap him. And he just treat them with disdain because he doesn't have to. Anybody under 40 is not looking at mainstream media anyway. They don't watch the 6 o'clock news or read the Australian, you know.
And that's the Trump playbook. The Trump playbook is be hostile to media that's hostile to you.
Yeah.
Right? Because here's the other lesson for Albo that you can learn from YouTube and from Trump. If you pick an enemy, then you, like, if you're on YouTube and you have a feud, let's say there's a feud between a couple of YouTubers on YouTube or something going on.
What would that be like?
I don't know who that would be. But that drives engagement because people pick sides, they pick teams, and everyone's like, the Barrel Arrow and Friendly Geordies thing was amazing. Because it's the classic underdog. Geordies is the underdog. Barrel Arrow's the big bully who's got the money, who's got the power. And everyone's like, well, of course I'm on Geordie's team. And the momentum that goes behind that is what Albo can harness. Because we're all sick of legacy media. We're sick of the corporate media. And Albo can kind of use that bit of populism, which is just listening to what people are wanting, and then pick something and do something.
Remember his sit-down buffet comments?
Yes.
Boom. Channel that. Do that again.
Yes. Pick an enemy, and then you'll actually have some.
But you're right. The weasel words do not help. I mean, those comments stick in people's memories. Sit down, buffhead. Adam Bant, even when he said, "Google it, mate."
Yeah.
You know, like these things actually don't play by the script. Don't focus group everything and be strong on a couple of issues.
Because you can see the focus groups behind Dutton and Albo's Instagrams. You can see the high quality camera. You can see him sitting there calculating, hi, yes, I'm in my kitchen. Look at me cook my curry or whatever ScoMo was always talking about.
No, they focus group a lot. And that's why it's interesting with Dutton, because he's just gone divisive. But that's deliberate. It's deliberate.
A good modern parallel is Stephen Miles, right?
He had a crack.
He did all right on the socials. I'll give him credit for that. His bench press, I was impressed. I was like 100 Ks, mate.
He could best press the opposition, I reckon.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Politicians not being risk averse because they know somebody's going to grab a faux pas and just put it up in lights, but then laugh it off. Just play your own game. But Albo's the consummate politician. Don't forget, here's a guy, right? He was a DJ at uni. Like, he was a DJ. And the guy was.
Get the decks out, mate.
The guy was.
Just go to do a Bunnings rave with Peking Duck and the Prime Minister.
Mate,
watch your ratings go through the friggin' roof.
The guy was on the Newtown sort of thing, watching bands at the Enmore Theatre. The guy was, he was hip. But what he's done, he's obviously a very good political operator because he's gone from the left of the Labor Party, which in New South Wales is dominated by the right-wing faction, always has been, to rise up through the ranks to become Prime Minister of the country from House and Commission. So
it's a good story.
It's a good story to the mansion
like
at Copacabana, which I couldn't believe he got all that shit for that because the guy, why shouldn't you buy a house if you're Prime Minister with your new bride?
Yeah,
I mean,
and it's
it
not
was
that
so
much.
tacky, but then again, it's one of those ones. It's one of those ones that was always going to happen because politics of MB play well. So,
but once again, man, I can't believe I'm saying this. How much you can learn from Trump in a weird way.
Oh, you love Trump, don't you?
I must. Clip that.
Can you say that on the camera?
Bit perverted in my view, mate.
Because how many crimes was Trump found guilty of in multiple courts across the entire United States?
Yeah.
Did his voters care?
Fell on sexual assault, predatory, the whole thing.
My theory would be why is because he came across as genuine. He came across and he was fighting for the people. He came across as genuine and he came across as fighting for the people. Because once again, you can say fighting for the people. He's just broke the record of most billionaires in US politics.
It's exactly the opposite. But no, look, I think it's a sign of the disaffection with the system because everyone knows there's something wrong.
Yes.
There's something wrong. And the deep state. So there is something wrong.
Yeah.
Its money is bought off Washington. It's as simple as that. And so there won't be proper reform over there. So he is a threat to
that establishment.
So people think, well, I reckon most people just spun the coin and we're sick of these other guys, this two-party thing. I think that's what's going to be the case here too, which allows for the rise of demagogues who say the right things.
Yes.
But it's going to be chaos. If you look at the cabinet the guy's chosen, the ministerial lineup over there,
Yeah, they're all billionaires.
It's reality,
billionaires.
but no, it's reality TV. There's
Well,
no knuckleheads, mate. Knuckleheads.
You can't say that we're not going to be entertained for a couple of years.
I mean,
but that's what I think you can learn from Trump is that if you stand up for something and you're unapologetic about the right things, right? Because he was completely unapologetic. He did not. In Lex Friedman, the thing is like, I lost by a whisker, and then they're like, hey, you finally admitted you lost. He's like, that was sarcastic, you know that, and everyone's just like, okay, like if you just stick to your guns on something, people will respect it.
But mate, you're falling into a bit the race call politics, which we criticise the mainstream for, because it's all about kind of like, hang on, look at this tactic. Oh, look at that tactic. Oh, he did well with that. He did well with that.
True.
What about the bloody policy to change the system?
You got me.
To bring it up? It's like an old car that breaks down all the time. They've got to bring it into. We got all the technology in the world, and yet there's this increasing concentration of wealth, alienation of entire generations of people.
Yes, but
because we're not even a fair society anymore.
But what I'm trying to do,
and that's because of policy failure. And we're sitting here talking about, well, maybe if Albo did this and he looked a bit better in the image front.
No, but here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to speak a language that they understand, which is optics. And I'm trying to say that at the heart of that is policy. Because I'm trying to pitch to them how good for PR good policy is. That's what, and fighting for good policy is. I'm trying to say this is, like, they only want good PR. So do this and you'll get good PR. But
well, until you actually have to put it into angle, because what's going to happen with Trump is he's a narcissist that is good, brilliant at marketing and whatever, self-promotion. Guys that know him know that he's the world's biggest con man, literally the world's biggest con man, because despite all those felony rape allegations, the whole thing, he's got into the White House now. Again. All gone, like Joe Biden's son.
Biden's son, boom, boom.
You know, so the problem is it's going to be chaos. It was chaos last time. Well, he had COVID. No, some sympathy for people having to govern during COVID, but the point is he's going to get in now and he's not going to do what he said he's going to do. None of them ever do.
We shall see. I would love to see it. I would just...
Well, it's going to be a disaster for the environment because it's going to be a free-for-all for large companies, polluting and carbon emissions and so on. He could bust a few things and change a few things, and that maybe is it's like a living organism. The system, what needs to happen in order to affect change is break something and then make it again.
I think, that's what Trump spoke to. He said,
there's a bit of that.
And I think we talk about the US because we look at Australia. Yeah. And the longer we continue with an unsolved housing crisis, the longer we continue with increasing inequality and higher insurance premiums, like the core living is going up because of the market forces behind that and the monopolies and duopolies driving this underlying system. If that rests unaddressed by good policy that people are willing to fight for, which I'm trying to say, you will be rewarded for it. You will go down as one of the greatest prime ministers if you just pick something, fight for it, and solve it. Like, people look back at Johnny Howard all the time, and the image they have
the gun thing was
in
good.
front of the gun lobby, yelling at them, saying, it has to be done.
Whitlam with Medicare and so on, and Keating with the super system and so on. But housing's only part, mate, the superannuation system is the other one. That is so chock full of subsidies and, that effectively wealthy superannuants are building tax shelters to pass on to their kids, which is only going to entrench wealth more. So... You've got your house from your parents, this is the problem. Unless you're a partner at PwC in your 30s, you're never going to be able to afford to buy a home. This is the way that it's going.
Well, thanks a lot, Stefan. We are depressed about the future of politics, all the way back to that question, because I hate to be pessimistic, but here's some optimism.
It'll change eventually,
Here's some optimism. Australia has something the US doesn't. Two things: preferential voting, mandatory voting. Those two things combined mean that the release valve isn't one or the other. The release valve, as we're seeing right now, is more independents elected to parliament. You get to preference your ballot and all those sorts of things. So if power is... here's my take on it. Power has been... corporate power has captured these big corporate machines, right? And so we've seen that, gone, these machines aren't working for us, we're going to opt out and put our power outside these structures, and now we've got the rise of independence. And if Labor wants to get that power back, they have to let go of that corporate power, that corporate pandering, if they want to pick up, and if Liberals as well, if you want to... Because the Liberals have really dropped the ball on the free market. They were meant to be the champions of the free market. It should be a Liberal Party politician
talking
about breaking up monopolies, right? This is the most conservative idea ever.
They don't believe in the free market. They believe in crony capitalism. That's the evidence. But you're right. I mean, the one good thing about politicians is that once every 3 years, they suddenly start to focus on their electors, the voters, because they know that on a Saturday in next May we're going to march down to the booth, and that's the one say that we have once every 3 years. But they do. They suddenly start ignoring corporations and lobbyists about 2 months before an election. They just ignore it. But then again, they're too busy doing, doorstops and bus trips and doing, shindigs that they don't have much time for policy and so on. I mean, have a think about those 30 bills they shoved through Parliament in a couple of days with the guillotine motions. Nobody's read them. Nobody's read them. They just shoved all this stuff through. I bet there's a bunch of lobbyists that made all the amendments to this stuff and said to whoever, just chuck that in, we'll do this deal and da-da-da. And it all goes through. That's not proper government. But it was agreed to by the two majors. So we've got a duopoly political problem. We've got a duopoly media problem. The latest thing is, you should get on this, mate. You're in the regions. There's a $13 or $30 million handout for journalism out there, and
I did see that.
But somebody rang me and said, "Oh, listen, we should try and get some of this." And I said,
"Get some cash."
Not for you. It's for all Rupert Murdoch's Townsville Bulletin and stuff like that.
Public airways.
But they're protected, so the duopoly is protected. They're protecting each other in a sense. And the rise of independent media, mate, there are a couple of stars like you around, but most people actually, I've had 4 legal threats this year. There's no such thing as free speech. This is the pressure, and you can only build to a certain amount. I mean, you get a couple of tearaways like, Jordan Shanks and so on, but effectively it's that's a solo operation.
But there is a path.
There's a path on everything because we get to publish for free whatever.
There's a path.
But then how do you get it to the point where, like a corporation, you have all this distribution?
Yeah. On that note, boys, I might start the wind down for the pod because we're running out of battery and we're an hour and a bit in.
All right.
But I like that point, Michael, about talking about independent media and stuff. Can you guys give out 2 shout-outs of people that you would recommend having a look at for your news sources?
Well, I'll say you and you can say me.
Okay.
Can't say each other.
Well, I follow this website called Michael West, independentjournalists.com.
Oh, talk about us more, mate.
Well,
so who have we got out there?
So I like the Saturday paper. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, well, they're probably the best of the mainstream, although they're independent in a sense.
Yeah, they're independent.
A couple of major failings, but they are good, and it's high quality.
It is.
The production,
well, you would know better than
the stories, the journalists are good. Yeah, it's a solid read.
Solid read. What's the other one? There's a good newsletter that I keep shouting out called True North. It's a digital newsletter. They send around your stuff, a bit of my stuff. Like they look at all the they look at all the independent journos, and they just kind of collate it into a thing. I'll find an email.
Renew Economy's good. Giles's thing is good on climate and energy.
There you go. So it's got True North. So some of the stuff that they they do put in some Guardian stuff, the 7 a.m. podcast. The Conversation. I like the Conversation. A few academics talking about nerdy stuff. It's always a bit dull, but the New Daily, it's all right for whatever. So this is like mostly just kind of independent-ish news. Like the Guardian's there. I know they're a bit corporate.
Ground News is good.
Who else is there?
I tend to just follow particular. I'm a Twitter head. I mean, we've all got our favourite platforms, unfortunately, because it's just a cesspool, Twitter, but X. But I just follow as a news feed, like about 20 people there, and just get their perspectives on whatever the news is. And I have a quick look at the mainstream to see what they're not telling us and who's dumped what to who every morning. Early in the morning, bang, 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 3 or 4 titles to see what the latest scam on the people is, because it's all just directed by puppeteers. Not all of it. I mean, you have people with there's still good stuff there, and there's a bit of investigative stuff, and Nick McKenzie and those guys do something. But on the whole, it's paywalled. It's the problem with social media, of course, is that the populist nature of it. You get people who are very popular, but you've just got to have I reckon
what I want you
a bunch.
to do on Blue Sky, I want you to build that list of people that people could follow. Then I can go in and see kind of your feed where you're like, hey, here's like 10 people I follow that keep me loosely up to date and I trust them.
I could put that together. Yeah,
and then I can go to your Blue Sky and go, oh sweet, now I'm like seeing who Westy is looking at, which would be pretty good.
There's a guy on Twitter called Strangerist10, the Stranger. He's just sitting, and what he does is all the stuff that falls between the cracks, where you know how they have these great little parliamentary inquiries or Senate inquiries where, you know, let's have a PwC for the Pococks are, you know, wielding the pitchforks and so on. So he takes grabs of that and he puts it across Twitter. He actually probably needs to be across all the platforms. It's a lot of work because you've got to watch the whole parliamentary inquiry and then cut the best 2 minutes out of it. Yeah. But he's done very well. He's very relevant because see, the mainstream media has failed in this. They're just getting their drops every night from Treasury or from PMC, right? PMC. So what I'm saying is it's disparate. You've got to go for the person, but you're right. If you can bring in an umbrella and a feed, but people do this themselves already, don't they? I mean,
well, they do, but once again, like for me, I don't know who's trustworthy, and I'm no journalist. You at least know who checks their sources and who's like quality. Whereas like I'll get drawn in by just confident speaking idiots on YouTube, like this guy who's just like, oh, I think this, blah blah blah, and I'm not qualified.
There's a lot of that. Then the other thing is with news, there is something to be said about the old news thing where the news is trustworthy because the journalist has double sourced it. What we see these days from anyone under 40 is basically op-ed. I think this, and I always say to my young guys,
well, it's not bad. Like you know, you can do a good YouTube living like that.
No, but you're right. But you anchor it with some facts. Right. But what I'm saying is, there's op-ed out there everywhere, and people saying, you weren't allowed to have a column in the old days until you were 40 years old. Like, and now they've got, I think this, and I always say to my young guys, no, nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares. Your mum might not even care what you think.
Says what you do is doing a live stream.
So exactly. But we try to refer to facts. But what you do is you need to tell the story. You know, that's the way media should be. And you tell a story. That's why people watch you. You tell a story. You anchor it in facts and so on. And we lace it, of course, with a lot of op-ed, a lot of opinion. But my point is, it's not straight waffle. You're saying, oh look, no tax. Oh, look, this name, Chevron, Exxon, whoever it is, you point,
story has
data
to
points.
Understand it, right?
Data points.
Yeah, story is,
Which is the role of traditional media to a point, but now because...
But they focus, they're cherry picking too much, you see.
Well, Chaz Luchadella has a good point on this news media point. He's the guy that does...
Chaz,
Chaz. He's quite, like, he's across all the US stuff, and he does quite well at siphoning what's crap and what's not.
Yeah.
And he's saying the whole point of media is that, and this kind of reinvigorates the algorithm conversation, is like, we shouldn't have to watch all the minutes of the Senate inquiry to find the little piece. We shouldn't have to fire hose all the information to find what's important.
Somebody needs to
distill it. That's what a good journalist used to do.
Yeah.
And that's what algorithms have now taken over the job for, except we don't know what the algorithm's priorities are.
Yeah.
So we're in this like in between where I'm hoping people are innovating personalized algorithms that help me do that job of siphoning the fire hose of information. So we need good journalism, we need good opinion, but we just need people who are accurate in facts, who, you know, don't have other monetary incentives to tell me a certain story that, hey, actually, because the story out there that, you know, Australia's a duopoly and monopoly economy and that's actually good. Like, people actually defend that line. And so I'm like, you can tell me that story, but we need people to look at facts and tell stories.
Well, I'm with the libertarians on that, but there's no free market and it's crony capitalism. And that's a big problem because it's not right and left. Albo's gone a little bit right of centre. And now we've got these last two moderates going out. They're going to go out further to the right, you know, the Murdoch Fox News solution.
Yeah.
And so it's all identity politics and culture wars and all this distraction. I mean, distraction, I think, is a great tool is a great arrow in your quiver, mate, because...
Well, I distract people.
Because, well, no, you're going, hang on, that's a bullshit story. The actual truth is this. And I think that's how I see my role being, you know.
Yeah.
We should look into doing a media literacy collab because, like, we don't teach it in schools. We don't have any resources. It'd be ironic if the government put out.
Well, they should be teaching it in schools. That's what
but mark my words. anyone mentions media literacy, woke schools brainwashing kids into how to discern facts, blah, blah. Like, you can imagine trying to get something like that up. It's like, no, just look at funding sources and look at like their background and, you know.
Well, this whole thing with woke, I mean, what is woke? Like, the war against woke. It's kind of like, yeah, there is a woke, but like...
Well, it didn't work for old mate last election. I'd be curious if Dado tries to pick it up.
It's just so lame, in my view. You know, there is...
Well, it's a distraction.
Wokeness does go too far, but it is a massive distraction. It's, again, identity politics. So that's got to meet an untimely death. That's got to end. I'm sick of hearing about woke.
They'll flog it as long as they can. It's marketing, man. If you say woke, it automatically means bad to certain people.
I mean, it's Australia trying to import the US culture wars, and I'm just curious to see how it goes this election, because I remember last election ScoMo leaning so hard into the culture wars, and Australia just rejecting it and going, you know what, nah. And so as with Dutton with the flag
Which
thing,
brings us back to housing.
Yeah, it brings us all the way back. So let's see what happens. I could, you don't want to call shots before the election. You never know what will happen. So.
Cool.
Who bloody knows?
We'll do an election thing though, will we?
Yeah, why not? Well, we'll do something. Josh will. We'll do something.
Face off camera.
Do something like that. So yeah, sign up on Patreon because.
Yeah, let's shout out each other's socials and shit because we're live on everyone's channel.
Oh, yeah. So
thanks, guys. Thanks for your support if you're on the Patreon, and sorry to ramble on for too long, but we'll just keep the content coming. I'm going right through the Christmas, so so give you something to look at during the cricket and the boat race, and it's a good time of year because it's the bring out your dead time when all the nasty announcements get buried because everyone's on holidays and there's no mainstream media. They'll go on holidays too.
I'll keep an eye on your diggings and pick up any corpses that you find.
There'll be a few corpses around the place.
Yeah, all right. Yep. Thanks all punters who support on Patreon and give us a follow. Even if people don't support but they share our stuff and, share independent media, then...
Or even if you want to have an argument, that's fine.
Yeah, we can disagree. That's cool. There's so many different stuff. Just, if people are dropping citations, that helps us. If you're like, hey, you missed this, take a look at this, then we at least know where... So, I mean, I don't know anything at all. I just, look at a lot of other people's information and then try and explain it as much as I can. And so I'm just the common man trying to sift through politics as best I can. So if it's helpful, then cheers for the supports, punts. Thanks for tuning in and asking all your questions.
Just give your socials, guys, because who's who. So
I'm at Punters Politics on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitter, and...
Reddit.
No, I'm not on Reddit, but people hate me on Reddit.
Well, you can't be on Reddit, can you? Just doesn't
people post me on Reddit, and then some guys defending the PRT, the tax thing. Anyway, I'll get around to that later, but you're on?
Website, Michael West Media, and The West Report on YouTube and Instagram. We're also on TikTok. And what else are we on, Matt?
You're on Twitter.
I'm on LinkedIn, the world's most boring thing, but it's actually...
I need to get on LinkedIn.
There's some good... You've got to get on there. There's some good stuff now on LinkedIn. Funnily enough, I always hated it, but it's good for contacts, good for information drops.
Yeah, I should...
It's the world's most boring platform.
See, this is the thing. I leave... Yeah, we'll see. I'll keep an eye on your Blue Sky feed to get that...
I'm Blue Sky, of course, yeah.
That algorithm feed, I'd like to see who you're following and keep an eye on that. All right.
Cool, guys.
Cool.
Cheers, punts. Catch you later.
Where's the holding screen? Hold up. 3, 2, 1.